Hi, I'm Shauna Davis, the Epicurean Connection, located here in Sonoma, California. Thank you for joining in one of our cheese chat sessions today. It's an honor to have one of our favorite cheesemakers in the Pacific Northwest, Daniel Utano, joining us. Thank you so much for taking the time out of our busy, not busy days during the pandemic to catch up and reconnect and have a cheese chat.
Thanks, Shauna. Yeah, it's great to be on here. Thanks for having me. It's been way too long since I've seen you. Even virtually, it's great to catch up with you.
Yes, and I'm honored you have the time. I know you've been busy consulting and developing new cheeses. And please share with our listeners and future viewers what you are doing up in the Pacific Northwest now.
Oh, well, I am doing a number of different things depending on the day. So I am consulting and I work with clients who are cheesemakers. I also work with clients who are in food production, but not just cheesemakers. I love doing cheesemaking consulting first and foremost. That's my biggest passion is cheese making, recipe development, recipe making. But I also love food safety, and it's a strange thing to say you love, but I believe very strongly and very passionately in the value of food safety. And so I also offer consulting services to food production businesses. And that ranges from developing FSMA and HACCP plans or helping people prepare for audits, navigate their way through the audit process, building documents,
Right.
Developing critical control points. Sometimes it's helping people get set up with lab testing. So it can really vary. And I really enjoy working on all sides of things. So as a consultant, it's been great for me to work with new customers, do lots of different stuff depending on the day. Also, as I work with customers who aren't cheesemakers, I get to learn a little bit about some other food processing and other food industries, which has been pretty cool. One of the companies I work for right now is an organic flour mill. And so that's been really cool, getting to learn about flour production and grain harvesting and learn the food safety side of something completely different. And they're organic, so I recently went through my first virtual organic inspection.
Nice.
So yeah, so doing all kinds of stuff, mostly getting to work from home, which has been nice, and doing a lot of virtual meetings or socially distanced, masked up meetings. So it's been good to be able to keep working through this time.
Right, and that's important. It keeps us all looking forward. If we stay busy and occupied with a vision forward, which I have to commend you, you recently joined the American Cheese Society Board. And I want to thank you as a cheesemaker and a reopened cheese shop owner. I really appreciate it. And share what is happening with the ACS and the vision. I've been reading some really exciting emails.
Yeah, it's a crazy time, and it's been a whirlwind to join the board this year with everything happening, but I'm also really glad that I get this opportunity. It's been my goal as a cheesemaker and as a cheese professional to be a leader in this industry and to keep pushing the industry forward and to be a voice for small cheesemakers and small businesses. And I think a lot of other times, if I had joined the board, I wouldn't have the opportunity to be pushing for so much change as right now, when we all know it's time for that. And the board knows it's time. ACS is no different than any other company, which right now it's time to pivot. It's time to think of the future and also to be really thinking about our members and what we can providing. So it's a time where we're spending our meetings, and I'm talking long meetings. We meet for an hour and a half meeting that goes for 3 hours. And it's how do we, one, pivot ACS to be a sustainable model for the future in the changing world? How do we support our members who need it the most? And how can we continue providing valuable content that helps our members right now? And we're going to try and come up with that with a number of different directions. And a lot of that is going to be education based.
Right.
Really providing our members with tools to succeed and tools to survive. We love the fun classes, but right now, what our members need is the tools to succeed, the tools to enhance their businesses, enhance their products, be more marketable, tools for employees and cheese professionals to grow in our industry. So there's a lot of that. I believe strongly there'll be a lot of that coming down the pike this year. We're cooking up some really exciting ideas, and it's a great set of minds, and we're all logging the hours for it, and these are volunteer hours. And I can tell you the executive committee are spending the majority of their week on ACS meetings, and these are also people who own businesses who are trying to keep their businesses alive, and so we're really all in this. And I think I look at it, and when you look at the demographic of who makes up ACS members, it's cheesemakers, specifically small cheesemakers. That is the majority of the member base. And so we're here to reach out to them and say, first of all, ACS is here. We're not going anywhere. It might be a challenging time, but we're here, we're stable, and we're going to be here in 2021. We're going to be here in 2022. We're going to have ways for everybody to connect this summer. We're going to have ways for everybody to connect in 2022, and not just once a year. I think that's going to be the biggest change. Is I don't believe we're going to turn into we're going to stay an organization where you see us for a conference.
Right.
We want to become an organization in which you're seeing us a lot, and we're providing regular content, and we're providing regular networking opportunities. And we're trying to provide abilities that we could do this. We could do what we're doing right now, and this can have value. And so we can provide all of that. And so that's really the biggest goal right now, is to try and provide education and opportunities that can help people build stability and build sustainability.
I think there's a lot of opportunity in this change and the pivot, that there could be weekly, monthly classes. And I mean, I can think of one that I've actually been sending out to cheese shops around the country, is weaving waste into profit, which I taught years ago at ACS, was, making our cheese plates, but saving all the trim to then put it in a mac and cheese, and providing the recipe, and then showing them the cost per, cheese board plus what you make on your mac and cheese, and helping these small businesses and larger ones keep their profit within their own company. And I think there's going to be a lot more of that meaty substance classes needed for right now.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you pivot your businesses? How do you survive in what's becoming a virtual interfaced world? How do you move forward as a cheesemaker if your sole source of income, or your primary source of income, were restaurants and food service? There's yeah, absolutely. It's so hard. I mean, aside from cheese, food's probably what we're most passionate about. And it's such a challenging time to be seeing so many restaurants close their doors, and who knows if they'll be back. I can't imagine being on those ends of things, but we have so many great minds within ACS. I'm not even just talking about the board. I mean, so many of our members, you and I were talking about Ari before. It's like, yeah, I mean, we have this great collection of minds, and, I look at it and just say, we were all, those of us who are on committees, those are us who are on the board, we were elected here to lead, and we need to make a lot of big decisions. We need to make a lot of hard decisions. And that's what we're here for. And, I think the reality is these changes were needed anyway. We keep reading these articles from different industries where it talks about, it's not so much that we just want to save the industry, we want to rebuild the industry. And that's really the way I focus on, there were changes that were needed and there's still changes that were needed. And
I really want to preserve that integrity of the business.
right, absolutely. And I strongly believe term limits exist for a reason. So if I'm on the board, I might only have 3 years, I might have 3 to 6 years. And I need to make that time count. And we have term limits so we can keep pushing progress. So,
I mean, I have to say some of these changes out of the pandemic have actually brought some of us back in contact. And to be honest, the last 2-3 years, I didn't go to ACS investing in a new business. I had to weigh out weights and measures and in fiscal decisions and decide that it wasn't, even though it's fun socially, it wasn't the direction for my business at that current time. And it was one of the hardest decisions I made because I miss hanging out and visiting, but I had to I needed to take classes on how to manage my tax and incomes. And I had to take the R&D classes and the HACCP recall plan classes. Like you said, the meaty, hearty classes.
right, absolutely. Especially when you bring up, HACCP recalls. I'm in a place now where I get to see sneak peeks of things like the industry surveys. I recently got a sneak peek of the recent industry survey they did, and it's always tough to parse through something when you're looking at statistics of those who actually filled out the survey, right, thank you. Recognizing that unfortunately not nearly enough members fill out these surveys, and there's so much valuable information in it, especially when I look through things like, what is our member demographic? How much production are the majority of our members actually making per year? How much income are the majority of our members actually making per year? And it's definitely, and it's what we say small producers, it is small producers. Most of our cheesemakers, at least that respond to the survey, are not making millions of dollars on cheese. They're not selling 500,000 pounds of cheese. Most of them are south of 100,000 pounds of cheese, and so that's our membership group. And then when you can break down to trends per region, or you can break it down to, I immediately go right towards things like the food safety information. And when you look at, I get the head explosion moment when I look at the respondents that currently say they don't have a food safety plan and they don't intend on having one. And so there's those things too, which is, how do we reach more of our members and provide them with the things that we believe we should be valuing the most?
Right.
How do we give them the tools to comply with FSMA? How do we give them the tools to build a food safety plan, to build a recall plan, to be prepared when the FDA comes for a surprise inspection? Because those are the things that will shut the businesses down, will cost them money, and ultimately hurt the industry as a whole. When one cheesemaker has a major food safety event,
if I ever get a chance, I always tell people, at the minimum, start with getting all of your staff the U.S. Food Handler Certificate. Because when you and I volunteer in Denver or Rhode Island or Seattle, we still have to have a food handler's permit. Yeah. And to me, that sets the base foundation. And that may be like a really easy beginning place to get people more involved in sanitation and safety.
Yeah, absolutely. And utilizing university programs. And we have, that's another thing. ACS has such a wealth of academics at our disposal.
Right there on the platform.
And so many universities provide you. Penn State and UNC Raleigh. There you can pull up sample documents,
right.
And quality programs, and so much useful resources that can drastically help your business. That exists there. You can take an online HACCP course from UNC Raleigh that does not cost a lot of money, and you can do it from your desk at your leisure. And so those things are available. But then I also think, ACS has the opportunity to help be providing that education, but also to kind of be upholding those standards. I really want our industry to understand that just having a lot of cheesemakers doesn't necessarily create a good situation. That just, what we want is a lot of good cheesemakers, and what we want is a lot of safe cheesemakers.
Yes. And then the next level is the cheese shops that follow the guidelines to store and sell the cheeses.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm working on with the Regulatory and Academic Committee, so I went from 2017 is when I joined ACS committee. I joined the Regulatory and Academic Committee, and that was actually because I nominated myself
I love that.
for the board, accepting that I was not just going to pop up and get elected, but had a very long conversation with Jeremy Stevenson, which is great that I now get to actually work on the board with Jeremy. And Jeremy just, basically said, I love what you have to say. I love getting fresh perspective in here, and let's get you on a committee and, take some leadership in a committee and let's see what happens. And, so I got into the Regulatory and Academic Committee, worked with great people my first year, Marianne Smakowski, who I can't say enough amazing things about, Michael Kalish, Bob Wills. I mean, a lot of really, really talented people. And then
Bob Wills is one of my favorites.
Yeah, Bob is terrific. Incredible wealth of knowledge and information. Dennis D'Amico, just these really terrific resources. And the second year, Alice Birchenow chaired the committee, and I volunteered to be the vice chair for her, and that was also terrific. I can't say enough great things about Alice and her service to ACS. She served in the regulatory. Alice served in the Regulatory and Academic Committee for something close to 8 to 10 years, while also serving on the board, while also serving on the Education Committee. I mean, so I think Alice is really kind of a gold standard for a small cheesemaker. I mean, she makes cheese in an area of the Deep South that is not known for cheese making. And she is ahead of the curve on anything FDA and FSMA related, cheese nutrition and education. I mean, Alice is really, and terrific to work with. And Alice was one of the people who pushed for me to be on the board.
Oh, that's great.
One of a few people, and Alice left me with a great piece of advice, which was don't get bullied.
Hey, I accept that offer from her.
Yeah. So, that's Alice. Alice is great. Great to work with, and such a champion for small cheesemakers. So one of the things we're really working on right now with ACS, with the Regulatory and Academic Committee, is trying to open more of a direct line with the FDA, and then also kind of create some sort of information conduit or communication conduit with our members and with state guild leaders.
Great.
Because I really think previously ACS's relationship with the FDA, it was very fluid, but I think very much from a listening standpoint. And I know the Regulatory and Academic Committee would really like to be more engaged. I'd really like us to be able to be more advocates. If we're in a conversation with them, if we're in a Zoom conference with them, it shouldn't just be us listening. We have to be talking too. I strongly, as much as I am in favor of food safety, I'm strongly against a one-size-fits-all regulation that comes down focused on big business and big production, especially when the core of our members are small cheesemakers. And it just all gets back to that. It's just understanding our core demographic is small cheesemakers. So we have an opportunity to be engaged with the FDA, being able to provide regular comments to the FDA, being able to be activists and advocates for what we do. And then also to be able to accurately produce guidances and education content that can directly benefit our members, with the hope, I think, and benefit of it potentially going to our guild leaders and having having monthly conferences and direct communication with our guild leaders, which we've already started. RNA committee has already started working with an ad hoc committee, the Guild Outreach Committee. Some great people on that, Vern Caldwell.
Okay. Well, you know,
Kelsey
Dan,
Carson,
that's where I wanted to see it when we had our Sonoma Valley Cheese Conference for 15 years, was have the national, but then break into regionals.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, yes. Because, and we're going to see different, you know, every region is going to be different. I just have to assume like what's happening in Wisconsin right now might not be the same as what's happening in Vermont or what's happening in Sonoma or what's happening in Oregon or Washington State. And then it also reaches out to the fact that we have a lot of small cheesemakers who are not members of ACS who we believe could really value from what we have to offer. And I think it can become a hard sell sometimes that it's going to cost us money. And then we have a conference and we have a competition and all of these things are valuable, but we have to recognize there's always going to be small cheesemakers out there who don't necessarily see that. But if we can enhance the education we offer and we can enhance the value we're offering small cheesemakers and loop in our guilds, then we have an opportunity to pull those people in and say, okay, hey, there's a lot of you out there. I mean, I can speak to, you know, Washington, there's a lot of cheesemakers in this state who probably are not members of ACS. And so those are the ones who come to guild meetings and they don't have a HACCP plan and they don't have a sampling program. And, you know, there's that chain of things. So it's like, okay, hey, well, you know what? Come to these meetings, join ACS, and we're going to help provide you with that content. We're going to help walk you through what the FDA is saying right now and how that works for small cheesemakers. We're also going to in turn listen to what you have to say, and we're going to turn around and push that to something that we can focus on, something we can talk to the FDA about. We can have that communication with them. We can push back on things.
I think
So
that's important, and that's a great shift for ACS to become, they already were an advocate, of course, but now it sounds like even more of an advocate for starting with the small cheesemakers and moving up. And that's really, I think, going to embrace a lot of people rejoining or joining when they can see the direct benefits of, I can write my HACCP plan, I can come up with a sample plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and we're still going to do some of the same things. You know, we're, you know, there's tradition to ACS that's not going to disappear, you know, and I think it's important for people to understand that too. You know, we're still here. We're still the same organization we've always been, but it's a new world. And, you know, we're here to change. We're here to help our members, and we're here to do it in a way that in 15, 20, 50 years, ACS still exists. There's a new generation of people in the cheese industry. There's cheese professionals that are still benefiting from what we do.
So building that platform on the platform that's already been established from the original founders. And moving it forward though, which is a huge important vision to move into the next generation, into the future where, I mean, where COVID is taking us, it's shifted a lot. But now is the opportunity to build some new community on those platforms. I really feel strong about that.
Yeah, and you know, when you look at the board right now, we have such a great mix of people. I mean, it's really cool. It's like, you know, I get on these Zoom meetings and it's like, okay, I'm exchanging emails with Max McCollman and Marian Smokowski, and it's like, you know, I have Max's book sitting on my shelf that I've had since, you know, since I was a young green cheesemonger a long time ago. And, you know, he's one of the reasons why I continued in my development in the cheese industry. Yeah. You know, it was getting a start as a cheesemonger and reading through the books they had on the shelves. And the first three I picked up were, you know, either written by Stephen Jenkins or Max McCollman. And so, you know, it's like now I get to work with Max. I get to work with Marian Smokowski, you know, who's one of the most accomplished and well-respected members of our community. And, you know, Jeremy Stevenson, who I've admired for a long time with his cheese and his company and what they do, you know, and obviously not limited to that, you know, and we really have a diverse background there. We are a great group of people, all different ages, but, you know, we've all come together for this one singular idea. And, you know, we're all in it and committed for the long haul of protecting ACS and helping to save our industry.
Well, I'm thrilled that you have the time and the passion to join the board, and they and we are lucky to have you. And I love hearing the diversity in the board now in all different genres and ages and mixed from around the country. That's really going to help move the ACS forward from the current already strong platform they have.
Yeah, and I wish we would get younger. And that's no offense to anybody involved with ACS or on the board, but you know, I would love to continue to get younger people involved in ACS committees, involved to eventually be part of the board. You know, it can't just be people of a certain age and people of a certain company size on the board. It needs to be constantly forward thinking. We need to be constantly pushing to change. And that's why, you know, I joke about term limits, but that's, you know, that's, if we have term limits, but we're just recycling in people from the same companies who are coming from the same point of view, then we're not going to change. Then we're just looking out for a small central group, and we're here to be there for everyone. And that's why I want to be such an advocate for small businesses, because one, I'm a small business owner, and when I envision having a creamer, having a cheese shop, it's not big, you know, it's so, you know, that is the comfort level for me. And I've worked with companies of all different sizes. I worked for Beecher's Handmade Cheese for a long time. I've also worked for small farmstead cheesemakers, and, you know, all of them made great cheese. All of them, you know, ran very successful businesses. And so it's not even putting one against the other. What makes sense to me is being a small business owner, being part of a community, you know, having a small staff, being able to provide good wages and benefit packages, and, you know, things based around that, a high focus on quality at all times, a high focus on food safety at all times, employee development, and those sort of things. And so, you know, we want to be trying to promote these things within ACS. I think we really want to be trying to build up the new class. Let's get young people involved. Let's get the new class of cheesemakers. If we have people who are taking the time and the money to become CCPs or to take the taste test, let's get these people involved. Let's get these people involved in judging. You know, if somebody's taking the taste test and they're passing our sensory evaluation test, I'd love to get those people streamlined in to be judges. You know, I'd love to get people at the table who are in their 20s, who are in their early 30s, you know, who are experiencing what the industry is like for people of that age right now.
Right.
You know, I'm 35, and I definitely know what the cheese experience was like for me.
Right.
And I have a perspective on it, but there's a 21-year-old out there who was in the same position I was 15 years ago, who is having a new experience. And, you know, so it's not for one generation or the other to determine what ACS always has to be. It's for every generation to determine what we want it to be now and what it should be in the future. And so that's what I hope I can get out of it, is that we can just keep getting more people involved, younger people involved, and we can keep pushing to try and build what the future of cheese in America should look like.
And I think we are actually going to see more of that through these Zoom calls and the new platforms that aren't requiring the travel and the cost and the expense of leaving your own small business. And I think that I hope that we're going to see more coming in, because now they can sit in their kitchen or their living room and communicate with at a national level as a volunteer, on a committee, on the board, and participate and make make a change, the change that they want to see.
Yeah, absolutely, especially on an international level. One of the members that's been really active with the Guild Outreach Committee, and then wrapping that in with the Regulatory and Academic Committee, is Kelsey Parsons, who's in Canada. And I think we tend to forget that the American Cheese Society is actually North America, and it's great to get Kelsey involved. Kelsey has the forward thinking to realize that what the FDA does, Canada is probably soon going to be doing, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
And so if we hear something that's coming down the pike from the FDA, he has an opportunity to communicate that out to Canadian cheesemakers or Canadian ACS members. And I'd also love to get way more, more Latin American members.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've tasted their cheese at some of their cheese at ACS. There are some really great cheese coming out of Mexico, coming out of, delicious. I mean, everybody knows Colombian buffalo mozzarella now. There's great cheese coming from these areas. So, I'd love to get them involved in committees. I'd love to get, them a seat at the table at the board, because that's probably a member group that has little to no representation currently in the organization. And, that would be great. And Zoom is a perfect way we can do that. They don't have to worry about traveling here for a meeting 4 times a year or once a month, when they could get on Zoom and they could have a meeting with us once a month.
I agree totally. I hope that we see someone join from South America and be part of a voice of some of these amazing, as you know me, I love fresh cheeses. So I love the fresh cheeses that are coming out of there. Yeah. So, well, I want to thank you for your time and your enthusiasm and your contribution to the cheese community over the 15 plus years you've participated in the cheese community. And we're lucky to have you on the board of American Cheese Society and sharing your wealth of knowledge and expertise with future cheesemakers and current cheesemakers. If there's anything I can do as Shauna in Sonoma, I hope that you'll reach out to me by phone or email and let me know how I can be of assistance.
Absolutely, Shauna. Thank you for having me. And, I'm just trying to follow in the footsteps of people like you and those who, when I was the green 18-year-old, and I met people like you and Ari and Gordon and so many other wonderful people that, showed me that there could be a career in cheese, and, did whatever you could to help support that. And, I'm just looking to return.
I say the door is open.
Yeah. And now I'm just looking to do the same thing, open my door to anybody else. And if I can help people develop as a cheese professional and have a fruitful career in the cheese industry and make great cheese and sell great cheese and have successful businesses and shape the new cheese generation, then, I consider that doing my job and, very fulfilled.
And me too. I still, actually tonight I'm doing a Zoom call tonight at 5 o'clock with a new cheesemaker that I've never met, but she was referred by a friend, and she just said, can I share my marketing plan with you? And I said, I'll be done about 5 and share a half an hour with you on Zoom and email it to me. So I read it last night. It's a pretty savvy business plan. And I'm looking forward to meeting this young lady who's 24 and wants to start working with goat milk. And I'm like, let's, keep the door open. Yeah. I don't know what I can do for her, but I can give her some of my time.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's terrific. I'm the same. I mean, I work as a consultant, so, if I can do it and make money on it, that's great. But I'm always available to someone. If somebody just wants to Facebook message me or email me a cheesemaking question, I'm happily to send a cost-free response.
That's great. And I love that. And that's one of the reasons I welcome you to continue being a leader in the cheese business. So again, I thank you for your time, and we'll put this up live on our YouTube and our website, and we'll send you the link, and we'll add your email and contact information. So if anyone has any questions, they can get directly in touch with you. There's no screen. They get to go right to the contact. And I'm sorry we don't get to hang out as much, but I'm honored to spend some time on Zoom with you and keep making some good cheese.
Thanks, Shauna.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yes.
Okay, bye, Daniel.